Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining our webinar today. Today we have Barrett Merrill, a marketing specialist here at Checkpoint EHR, and he's going to be sharing some mental health marketing tips. So we'll give it just another minute for anyone else to hop on, and then we'll go ahead and get started. In the meantime, while we're waiting for other folks to join, I do just want to make sure that you all know where the Q&A is. In case you have any questions for Barrett, I think he has some questions for you all as well. So at the top of your team screen, you'll see two chat bubbles, and it should say Q&A. And then when you click on that, on the right-hand side, you'll have a window pop up where you can start a discussion. Go ahead and post so everyone can see. So you all should get a notification there in that Q&A section. But yeah, so if you have any questions, feel free to post them there. And you don't have to wait till the end, just as they come to you. We'll have a section for questions at the end, so we'll go ahead and read through those. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so just a couple of housekeeping items. Everyone is muted and your cameras are turned off. If you do post in the Q&A section, just keep HIPAA in mind when posting. And this shows you where to post. This is what it should look like at the top of your screen, okay? So your webinar team today is myself, Katie. I am the Customer Success Manager here at Checkpoint EHR. And then we also have, again, Barrett Merrill. He's going to be your presenter and teaching you everything that you need to know about mental health marketing. All right, do you want to go ahead and take it away, Barrett?
Absolutely. Thank you again for letting me do this today, and excited to do some marketing tips with everyone, and hopefully this is one of many to come in the future. And so I will start by sharing my screen. Give me a second to pull up my PowerPoint. Right, here we go. All right, can everyone see my screen?
I think we are good to go.
Awesome, perfect. Well, again, my name is Barrett Merrill. I am the marketing specialist here at Checkpoint. Here to jump into just a little kickstart around marketing, just giving some high-level mental health marketing tips. A little bit about me. So I had a mental health startup for several years from the technology world. And so I've had the opportunity to really explore, catering, general best practice principles, but specifically to the behavioral health and mental health professional community. I also have the privilege of being married to a therapist. And so we are constantly on this journey. She's in private practice and is leveraging a lot of these tips herself. And we have a fun time getting to learn from one another, partner with one another, collaborate, play some different ideas off each other. So it's a privilege to now get to be doing a lot of this work in the context of Checkpoint and with a lot of you here today. So let's go ahead and jump in. So again, today I really want to be just a super high level overview of what is marketing? What is a framework for approaching marketing? And really how to just make sure we're asking the best questions to create a strategy that works best for us. And so just super high level, a lot of times we just ask ourselves, and you probably ask yourself too, what is the purpose of marketing? Why do we do the things that we do? Why do we, waste or spend so much time trying to figure out social media posts or websites or blogs or ad campaigns or business cards or flyers? There's so many different ways that we can try to approach marketing, but what is the actual purpose? And so, again, there's a lot of ways we can answer this question. I think for us and for myself, it can be helpful to try to frame it in terms of, short-term goals and purpose, and then long-term goals and purpose. And so, In the short term, we really see marketing as how do we deliver standalone value to prospective clients, to partners, and to different forms of talent to generate awareness and interest. And so, a lot of times when you think about marketing and when I look at different marketing campaigns, just in the industry, I see a lot of very self-promotional content out there. Um, and a lot of times, we're kind of shooting ourselves in the foot trying to be so us focused, so me focused in our campaigning that we forget that a lot of the times, really the goal in marketing is to deliver value for other people. If you think about it for yourself, when you're a buyer for different products, services, whether it's, you're going shopping, going to the store as a consumer, whether you're shopping around for different products in your company, in your clinic, you rarely, if ever, want to be sold to. You don't like seeing campaigns that are saying, here's why you should buy from me, here's why you should work for me, work with me. So often, we're looking for things that are free value to us, that are benefiting us, that are answering the questions that we're searching for. And so, in the short term, marketing is really about delivering that standalone value that can generate awareness, generate interest into who you are as a subject matter expert, who you are as a clinical expert, who you are as being specialized in a particular type of care that is relevant and aligns with the clients, the partners, and the talent that you're looking for. And so in the short-term goal, it's really generating that awareness and that interest. Now, on the flip side, in the long term, the goal ultimately is, right, we want to increase our client base. We want to generate the appropriate and the best partnerships in the field. And then we want to have employee retention, right? We want to attract the right talent, but we want to keep the right talent. And all of this is driving organizational sustainability, profitability through creating opportunities for making decisions and driving action. And so again, we want to provide value in the short term, but that value ultimately points back to relationship that leads to making decisions, driving actions that support our organization. So at a high level, that is really how we view the purpose of marketing. You'll see some of this language in our next slide. But if you want to think about it this way, a traditional marketing or sales funnel has 4 steps. Maybe you've seen a funnel like this before. And I think it's very relevant or accessible even for mental health clinicians. Oftentimes, we might view a marketing or sales funnel as something that's for different types of businesses, but that doesn't really work for us in the mental health world. And I think if we can look at this funnel and maybe reframe how we typically think about this funnel, it works just as much in this field as any other field. For clinicians, there always has to be something around brand awareness. Do people know we exist? What do they think about us when they know that we exist? Who knows about us? And then really that value comes in of the content that you create when you can shift from just awareness to interest. Is the stuff I'm putting out valuable enough that makes them interested in who we are? Do they trust what we offer? Does it really drive prospective clients, partners, and vendors and talent to our organization? Now, eventually, it has to shift from just interest, intrigue, to making a decision. And so that's where we really focus on how are we creating calls to action? What are the calls to action that go from, yeah, they made it to our website. Yeah, they appreciated an ebook or a blog or a webinar that we've created. But how does that interest turn into a call to action to make a decision to either work with us or understand that maybe there's not a fit for working specifically with us, but maybe we can refer them to a partner or something else. But really driving that decision, because there's nothing worse than having a lot of people who are vaguely interested in what we do and who we are, but really are on the fence and stay on the fence with, do we want to work or partner with this organization? Do we want to receive care from this organization or not? And so creating calls to action that lead to decisions And then decision to action is really how do we make a smooth transition into a practical relationship with someone. So for instance, clients, what is the onboarding process? Do we have a clear way to communicate, a contact us form, a way to schedule with us? How is intake? Is there a smooth EHR process? Um, for partners, for prospective hires? Is there a clear line of steps forward, a timeline, clear expectations communicated that move us from decision to action? And so, really, for any marketing perspective that you have for your organization, you're always asking, am I doing the best I can at each of these four stages? And how am I filling each of those four stages and moving them along within that marketing funnel or that process? And so a lot of this really is driving towards some of the questions that I think are really just worth asking throughout this presentation. And as you start to reevaluate or assess your marketing at your specific organization. And so I also just encourage you, I'm going through a lot of different slides, a lot of different ideas. And so my encouragement to you is just as I speak on some of these questions, go ahead and just drop your answers if you have any thoughts or reflections on them in the Q&A in the chat, and we can always come back to those later at another point. But don't let these be abstract questions. Think practically. How would I answer these questions for my specific clinic, practice, agency, organization? And so 7 questions to ask. So number 1 is, what is your marketing goal or marketing goals? You have to have a vision. You have to know the direction of where you want to go so you can know if you've made it or not. And so huge question for you is what are your marketing goals? A lot of times I've seen, that's filling up your client load. You want to attract more clients, clients that are a good fit for the specializations that you have at your agency. You want to also draw in clients that align with whether it's budget restrictions, it could be, they have use a particular type of insurance or not. And so, there's client load, filling your client load. That's one big marketing goal we see a lot, but there's also others. Some are just enhancing overall quality of care. A lot of times, clients are looking for content, for websites, for other marketing material because they want to understand the process. It can enhance their experience of care if they see and can learn a little bit more about your organization ahead of time. Attracting hires. A lot of times we hear about struggles with staffing or clinical retention. We even wrote an article a couple months ago about how I think it was last year, there was about a 30% year over year turnover rate with clinical staff. That's a lot of turnover to deal with in a year. And so marketing can be a great means to attracting the right staff, having right alignment ahead of time, and potentially creating a better retention rate. So marketing goals can revolve around hiring, partnerships, making others in your local community aware of what you do, who you are. There's tons of different goals you have, but it's important at the end of the day to know what are your marketing goals so you can have a vision and a direction for the different channels that you work with. After you know your marketing goals, the next is asking the question, what resource do you want to invest in? Marketing can be time consuming. It can be a big drain on budget. And so it's really important to ask, how are we going to go about our marketing to make sure that we're not wasting money, we're not wasting time, but we're most efficiently and effectively using our resources to get the best ROI, the best return on investment for the marketing that we're doing. And so that's another, big question that you should ask ahead of time. Even working with a practice a few weeks ago, they were trying to determine, do we outsource some of these channels? Do we try to find a social media manager, an agency, or do we just want to do it in-house? And after working with them, we decided, hey, they are just not in a position to do daily posts on social media. And so we found a good, affordable, behavioral health specific social media marketer out there to do their daily posts. On the flip side, they did feel like it was realistic among the different clinicians in their practice to do one blog every couple of weeks. That felt more reasonable and time sensitive for them. And so we were able to determine here's where you should spend your money, here's where you should spend your time to make sure you get the most out of it. Question number 3, after you've determined your goals, how you want to spend your resources, you have to then really evaluate who are your ideal clients. I'll take a sip of water real quick. Um, Ideal client, it's really helpful to understand your ideal client because that's going to determine a lot of how you approach your marketing, what channels of marketing are appropriate, which ones are not. Identifying your ideal client can come in a variety of ways. Sometimes that's demographics, gender, socioeconomic, location, specializations, life stage. It can be a plethora of different ways that you identify your ideal client, but getting really specific early is super, super important. You can always expand who you provide care for beyond your ideal client, but if you have a very broad or vague ideal client, it can be pretty difficult to hone in on the specific types of people you work with. Another clinician I was speaking to recently was able to hone in on and define their client base. They have a practice that's specifically in downtown Atlanta. They work a lot in perinatal care, and so they focus a lot on women who are early in parenting, and also struggling with some postpartum. They do a little bit with trauma as well. And so they were able to take a few of those variables and really hone in and identify their ideal client. And then flowing from that is where does your ideal client spend their time? And so that's really kind of part B to that question is now that you know your ideal client, you have to understand where you spend your time. And so, for instance, this particular therapist realized, hey, these clients are spending their time in Facebook groups with other new parents. Some of them work with doulas, physical therapists. Here's some of the healthcare clinics that they've worked with. Here's some other just general characteristics of them. It seems like they might spend more time in coffee shops. They might spend more time shopping at these stores. And so they were able to start identifying based on the clients that they had worked with where that specific type of client spends their time, because where people spend their time is also where they're going to see the most messaging, the most marketing material, etc. And so identifying where clients or partners or prospective hires spend their time is a huge question, because you could be wanting to work a lot in LinkedIn, but realize that none of the people you're trying to work with or work around spend their time there. All of them spend time on TikTok or Facebook, or maybe they don't even use social media. They prefer these other various channels. And so being able to understand where they spend their time is important. Question number 5, what kind of content would be valuable to your ideal client? So this goes back to a point I mentioned earlier, which is that clients, people in general, are not looking to be sold to per se. And I use the term sales loosely because I think that's not a term we necessarily use among a lot of mental health providers. But people aren't looking to be receiving material that's just telling you about the other person or the other organization. They want material that is answering questions to their day-to-day life, that are solving problems for them. And so if we continue down this one example of a therapist, instead of just saying, hey, here's more and more and more about my practice, my agency, something beneficial could be, here's a blog for best resources for people who are new parents. Here are 10 myths about postpartum that you maybe you're not aware about. To use a different example, maybe you work heavily with people who have experienced different forms of abuse or trauma. And so maybe an article that talks about helpful coping mechanisms when you're having a hard trauma response or when you're experiencing a trigger. Creating blogs, posts, etc., content like that that are super valuable to your clients and to your audience is super important. Calls to action. And so going back to the funnel, you have to ask yourself the question, how am I taking all of this marketing content and driving it towards some form of action? And so that can vary depending on the marketing channel that you're using. For instance, if you have a website, having buttons that point to a contact us page, point to maybe you offer a free 15-minute consultation. Maybe, from a post, the call to action is a read more button or hyperlink that gets them off of a social media page onto your website. Maybe when they land on your website, you have a button that offers a subscription link to join a weekly newsletter. Finding calls to action that get people more engaged, more involved, strengthening trust, strengthening relationship is super helpful to really getting the most out of your marketing. We don't want to have just standalone content here and there that's isolated and doesn't really do anything. We want to drive action, not just to support ourselves, not just to support our audience, but to also encourage our audience to take action on the things that they're searching for and the content that we're providing. And then lastly is, how are you going to measure your success over time? And that's a big question because I've talked to so many practitioners over the last few years who have said, I just do this because I feel like I'm supposed to do it. I just feel, I just throw out posts because I feel like I should. I send mail I send, mail to different types of people. I go to these networking events. I just spend a couple $100 a month on Google Ads just because I feel like I should. And that's never a good reason because you can't measure it. And generally, that doesn't stick with your goals, your vision, your direction for your marketing. And so, identifying how am I going to measure my success based on my goals? If you're just getting started, maybe your goal could be, doubling the engagements or the comments that you have over the next couple of months. Maybe your goal should be, if you just started a newsletter, trying to double your audience or double your click-through rate each month or every couple of months. But identifying those metrics that you're going to use to measure your success over time to make sure that you're staying in the right direction. And at the same time, metrics over time can show which channels are more or less effective. You might come to realize that, doing all of these ad campaigns are not giving you a whole lot of ROI, but they're really expensive. But you might come to realize that, hey, you've invested almost no money into, just putting out good blogs and doing a little bit of, SEO, search optimization, you should just spend more time and money on your website and on your blog and stop trying to waste your time and money on something like advertisement. So by having those measurements and metrics for success, you'll be able to really, hone in and have a strong focus for the direction of your marketing. To the next slide. So as you answer these questions, as you've identified different layers to your funnel and really are pushing towards action based on your goals, based on your metrics, the next, framework that I think is just really helpful to use in your marketing is this idea of a three-legged stool. And what I mean by that is there's really three primary arms to a marketing framework, or in this case, your marketing stool, which is inbound marketing, outbound marketing, and word of mouth. And so whether it's, investing 80% in one and only 10% in the other two, if it's more balanced, 30, 30, 40, whatever that looks like, I encourage anyone I work with to always have at least something, big or small, in each of these three categories, because they all function very complementary, harmoniously with one another when it comes to different types of marketing campaigns that you do. And so the remaining time I want to spend is just throwing out a couple ideas. We can go back to some Q&A after I'm done with this. But just really looking at how do we define each of these three categories and what are some examples for each of these? So first, just going over to inbound marketing. So if you think about inbound and outbound marketing, a lot of times there can be some gray because they really work very cohesively with one another. And it kind of depends on, the role that they play within your marketing. But just to paint a picture, if you think about inbound and outbound marketing, think of that as a client or a partner or a vendor or a prospective hire. Think about them coming to you. It's them coming onto your turf. They're coming onto your social media account. They're coming onto your website. They're attending your webinar. Inbound marketing is when you're drawing people in, whereas outbound marketing is when you're going onto their turf, you're sending things out to them, you're reaching out to them. And so some examples of inbound marketing. Social media content, just being consistent on your social media, making good posts. Blogs, having consistency on blogs. Again, between blogs and websites, just really focusing on SEO, that search engine optimization, which at a high level is just, focusing on keywords, how you structure things like headers, the links that you have in your website, different things like that. Ebooks and guides, having different resources, free resources on your website that may be a little bit more extensive or slightly different than a blog. I'll even share at the end of this, we have an ebook that just came out that's specific to marketing tips. It's longer than a blog. It has a little bit different function than a blog, but creating things like ebooks and guides. Having a newsletter. And so if someone goes onto your website, giving them the opportunity to start subscribe to a newsletter. Super beneficial because now you own that contact information, instead of something like LinkedIn or Facebook owning that contact information. And so it allows people to subscribe to your content and allows you to send that content directly to them. And then webinars and workshops, opportunities for people to meet you, to hear about your subject matter expertise, and to see what that interaction could look like. Again, webinars and workshops can be fantastic resources. And again, you can even see that with how Checkpoint Success Team, Katie, Callie, Kiara, a lot of the team have done such a great job in facilitating different webinars and workshops. Outbound. So again, this is you going outside and trying to go towards your different audiences. So outbound marketing can look like things like paid advertisements, things on like boosting posts on Facebook from your organizational account. That can be Google Ads. Doing things like direct mail, a little bit old school, but that can be helpful and sometimes is a beneficial outlet. Things like cold outreach. A lot of times if you just research contacts, obviously that's not something you can do necessarily with clients, but things like partners, hires, etc., is just reaching out to that audience, sending them emails, sending them direct messages on social. Hosting things like networking events and or going out to networking events, going into the community to meet different people is a great outbound marketing opportunity. Setting up booths at conferences, great outbound marketing opportunity. And then again, old school things. I was at a coffee shop even a few months ago, and there were a dozen flyers providing local different services, and I saw there was a small mental health clinic in the neighborhood that had a flyer up there. Billboards, again, that you can start thinking way outside the box and some different options, but thinking about some of those outbound marketing resources that meet your prospective audience in their own area. So that's outbound. And then lastly is word of mouth marketing. Now, word of mouth it's a little bit different, definitely in the behavioral health, mental health space, because of some ethical barriers. You can't have necessarily a referral system with clients. You can't get testimonials or solicit testimonials from your clients, but you can get creative. For instance, I've seen a lot of people who have gotten referrals or testimonials from former supervisors or from former professors or other partners in other clinics that have had the chance to see the type of care that's offered and the benefits that have taken place. And so, having alternative types of referral systems and testimonials set up is a great word of mouth resource. In general, just industry partnerships are a great opportunity to share about your brand, your organization. So if you see that a lot of your clients are also working with this health clinic or a chiropractor or a PT or name your audience, it could be a great opportunity to find co-branding relationships or co-marketing opportunities. And then lastly is just providing excellent care. I've spoken to a lot of therapists who just say, my best marketing trick is just providing really good care to each of my clients. From the moment that they see my website and read my blog to the moment that they reach out to scheduling an intake call to every session ever since. Providing excellent care, there's nothing that beats just the word of mouth marketing that can come through that. And again, realizing that in an industry like mental and behavioral health, that's very impactful to the day-to-day life of that particular audience. For instance, I might even take this water bottle. I'm not day to day thinking about this water bottle or having a water bottle type conversation because it's not such a significant or prevalent topic in my mind or topic of conversation. Whereas if you look at just how holistic and comprehensive the behavioral health experience is, it's much more highly likely that someone's going to be sharing about their care experience, especially if it's a positive care experience with others. So as I just start to land the plane, one thing just to wrap all of this up, I know I'm throwing out tons of different ideas. And really when it comes to marketing is it's all about just testing the water. You're not going to master it. You're not going to perfect it day one. But it's all about just figuring out, what works, trying new things. And so one thing that we did just put together is a little ebook on our website. It's free marketing idea kit, just providing, 80 insanely practical marketing tips for therapists, just to help get the wheels turning. Again, if you're at your first day of trying to do a marketing campaign, or if you've been doing this for years and years, but just trying to think outside the box and explore different channels and mediums, encourage you to go download our marketing idea kit, give us your feedback, let us know what's missing, let us know what's helpful. But we're hoping that resources like this can really encourage and enhance your marketing experience. So I know I just monologued for about 35 minutes. Really appreciate you joining and want to take some time to just field any questions there might be. So.
Awesome. Thanks, Barrett. That was definitely a lot of great, super valuable information there. So I'm just going to pop over my screen real quick. Yeah, so we do have time. If anyone has any questions for Barrett, the Q&A are those double chat bubbles there at the top that say Q&A. You're going to click on that, and then on the right-hand side, you can click the start discussion and post there. There are some questions there already. I think there was about 7 that Barrett had in that initial slide. So you're also more than welcome to respond to any of those, and we can dialogue about that. And while we're waiting for some of those questions to pop in, I wanted to show you all where that ebook was. So our website is checkpointehr.com. And like Barrett mentioned, you're going to go over here to resources, and then you're going to select ebook, and you can fill out your information and click submit. And then does it get emailed to them?
So once we're still modifying since it's our first ebook, but once you press submit, it'll refresh the page. But then if you scroll to the bottom of the page, you'll see the cover of the ebook. And once you
Okay.
click on the cover, it'll link and open a new browser with a PDF. So you can, if you want to download it, you can, or if you just want to read it on the browser, it'll be available.
Okay. Awesome. Great. Sounds good. All right. So let's go back and see if we have some questions here for you. Okay. Let's see. If someone is new to marketing, where do you suggest that they start?
Yeah, I think that's a fantastic question. And I think depending on going back to the earlier slide, depending on your goals is going to be a big determinant for that. But I think there's a lot of low lift things that you can put in place. So as you decide where you want to invest your time and money, that framework's already built out. You know, we typically encourage everyone to just go ahead and have a very clean, simple website. Even if it's just a landing page with one or two pages or tabs. DIY, I made a personal website in a couple hours just on Squarespace, and it's only 30, 40, $50 a month to be able to maintain it, uptake it. So there's DIY options, just get a domain. You can host it on Squarespace or maybe a WordPress if you want to level up a little bit. But just having a simple website, I think having just making sure you have personal accounts on all social medias, or at least a handful. I bias LinkedIn and Facebook are my favorites. I think Instagram is decently helpful. I think things like Instagram, TikTok, sometimes those cater to more smaller private practice crowds, but I think at least having those accounts. I would recommend going ahead and creating a company page on Facebook and on LinkedIn. If nothing else, just having your name attached to it and description, having a logo, a link to your website. I think just having the general, framework in place so that, you can start to dabble in different things. And then from there, I think just, making occasional social media posts, occasional blogs, doing a couple just very baseline things just to start showing that you exist, showing your audience that you exist, and trying to connect with different people on those channels.
Great, thanks. Let's see. If you had to pick one marketing tool out of your marketing tool bag that I'm sure you have, um, what would that be?
That's a good question. And I'm trying to shift my mindset, right? I think there's a few I would say that I love in the context of Checkpoint, but then shifting gears to more of an agency or practice. I'm a big fan of newsletters. I think, I don't know if that's the first thing I would start with, but I do think having a newsletter early on is really beneficial because, again, it's an avenue for you to have email addresses of people who are interested in receiving regular resources from you. Again, keeping HIPAA, keeping ethics in mind. You can't, start soliciting emails or from clients, but if you have the forms on things like your website available and people go and subscribe because they want to receive content, it's a great way to have ownership of those email addresses because it allows you to know you can directly email contacts. And so for something like that, I think even just a MailChimp can be really beneficial. Things like MailChimp, you can automate and customize those newsletters, but then you can also track engagement. You can see what percentage of people are opening your newsletter? Are they clicking on your links? It allows you to start feeling out, your calls to action, the kind of content that you're creating. If you have two emails, one has, an open rate of 70%, the other's an open rate of 20%. The first one has, 20 people clicked on, a blog link. The second one, no one did. It allows you to start seeing, oh, wow, what was valuable in this email that wasn't in that? How do I, follow down this trail and not the other? So I think a tool like MailChimp could track, uh, your engagement for stuff like newsletters. Historically, I would say having like a content scheduler, like a Sprout Social or a Hootsuite, those have historically been really beneficial. At this point, I would almost, depending on budget, right, but I would almost dissuade people from jumping straight into those tools because those can be hundreds and hundreds of dollars per month. Whereas a lot of social medias nowadays, LinkedIn, you can go and schedule your posts. Meta Business for your company page on Facebook and Instagram, you can schedule your posts there. And for Meta, it'll go to both of those accounts at once. So, I think taking advantage of scheduling in general is helpful and important because, and this is just a pro tip anyway, is you're going to feel exhausted. It's going to feel daunting to try to create one unique, interesting post every single day. But if you can time block, say at the beginning of every month, and give yourself a couple hours, build out posts and blogs for the entire month, the content schedule, and get those scheduled in your different accounts, then you're not even thinking about it. It will automatically do that for you. So just taking advantage of the tools that you have. And then, again, I love things like MailChimp, Hootsuite, Sprout Social, if there's the budget for it.
One thing that I really like about the newsletter is it feels like you can put a lot, like with an Instagram post, right? It's typically about one thing, but with the newsletter, and I have no marketing experience, just for the record. That's just what it seems like. With the newsletter, you can put a lot of different content in it. So maybe it's like presentations that you're doing or new services that you're providing, um, even doing, what's it called? Volunteering and anything like that. Like you can put a lot of those different things into one newsletter, and then you can kind of see what's grabbing people's attention, right? So, oh, this topic seems to grab people's attention more. Let's try to focus more on that.
Definitely,
Oh,
definitely.
yeah. Okay. All right. Let's see. What are some trends that you're seeing in the marketing world that people should pay attention to?
Yeah, I'm biased, but I'm a big LinkedIn fan. And so again, different goals are going to be dependent on or are going to dictate the types of marketing that you do. But just to fire a couple different things, don't jump into paid advertisement day one. That's just going to waste your money. I think once you nail down your ICP, your ideal client persona, once you figure out a couple of those other inbound, outbound, word of mouth type channels, things like socials, blog, website, etc. I think at that point, you can find value in paid ads. A big trend I see just on LinkedIn is just a realization that company pages are not going to attract as effectively as personal pages. I think maybe the flip company pages or even Facebook groups can be helpful on a Facebook space, but I think places like LinkedIn is the individual and the content that you're putting out individually seems to draw a lot more attention and attraction. And then in general, it's stuff I've already been saying, but we're really post that self-promotional era. There's so much content that's going out every single day. Everyone's trying to do tons of social media and all this kind of stuff. And so if you think about it, if you have a split second as someone's scrolling on their phone, there's a good chance that a self-promotional piece of content is not going to get them to pause long enough to read what you posted. And so really having unique, very helpful, very valuable content from a personal page and doing that consistently is going to be really helpful. And so I'd say just get involved on LinkedIn. Start with something that's realistic. I'm a big fan of posting every day. Unfortunately, that's the way that social media algorithms work. But find something that's realistic and do it consistently. And engage on other people's pages too. I think, I have a list of a couple dozen mental health professionals who are really putting out amazing content on social media. And I send that list of people to friends, to colleagues, and just say, hey, go follow these people, learn from their content, interact with them. And I've seen my personal following, my personal engagement, and even sales calls go up tremendously just by a lot of those interactions.
Awesome. Okay. Let's see. One more question. What are some of the biggest challenges in marketing that you see?
I'd say one is just really coming down to the mindset and expectations. You know, a lot of times we want fast results, and the reality is fast results aren't always super realistic. They're very rare in the software and business world. There's a reason people call the 1 in 1,000 billion-dollar companies, they call them unicorns because they're so rare. And so the fast returns is usually not super realistic. And so I'd say the challenge is just the consistency. Consistency and value. You have to be intentional and be okay with slow. A lot of people are talking about SEO. Again, it's search engine optimization. But not a lot of people realize, it's not a silver bullet and it's not going to happen overnight. A lot of times it's going to take at least 6 months for all of this keyword research, all of these backlinks, all of this intentional structuring of each blog and each page in your website for it to really start to generate more and more clicks and attraction. And so I think one of the hardest things is just being consistent, having realistic expectations, and just getting out and doing it. Sometimes it can, it's tough to just say, hey, I just need to get out and do more networking. I just need to set up more calls and reach out to more prospective partners, or getting out and doing more posts and all of that kind of stuff. So, yeah, again, I think the challenge is consistency and having the realistic expectations that it might take some time to do it well.
Awesome. All right. Well, if no one has any other questions for Barrett, Barrett, thank you. It's definitely a lot of valuable information. Again, definitely go to our website, check out that ebook. You can also find us, of course, on LinkedIn. Barrett does some really, really awesome LinkedIn posts, so I highly recommend you guys check that out. But yeah, you'll have access to this recording once this webinar ends. But again, thank you everyone so much, and we'll see you next time.
Yeah, thank you all.
Thanks.